What's up, guys? It's Aaron the Trucking Guy coming at you, bringing you some content. Today's video is going to be about none other than the biggest problems in hotshot trucking, okay? And why you might not want to get into it, okay? This is, again, just an opinion, not verified facts. So let's start with the first one that I think is the biggest hurdle to overcome is the equipment depreciation, guys. Every time you buy a truck, and this is why a lot of, billionaires and millionaires don't step into the transportation industry, because of the depreciation aspect and because the margins of profit are so low, statistically, nationally, the whole nine. So the depreciation of the equipment, if you're buying a hotshot, this is specifically because if you're buying a semi, the thing is going to last a lot longer. It's going to go a lot longer. Your cost to operate and your maintenance is much, much lower. But going into a hotshot truck, you're buying, usually the typical one is a 3500 Ford or Ram, sometimes a Chevy, right? When you buy that truck, it does not have, it is a commercial truck. It's a light duty commercial truck. What you're doing is putting it into a heavy duty application. So you're not going to have commercially rated tires, okay? The equipment is really not rated to do what you're going to do with it, okay? And it is legal to do it, okay? It is safe to do it. But what I mean by rated is it's not going to hold up in the long haul doing hotshot trucking, okay? It's just not. And this is my experience on running. We've signed on almost 100 people now to our company, owner-operator as well as company drivers that have had trucks. And that's some semis as well. It doesn't include all hotshots. There's been a lot of semis in there. But going into it, you're buying a truck that has 10-ply tires on it. Those are light-duty commercial-grade tires, okay? They're not made to run 500 miles a day, average, 2,500 miles a week. They get too hot. They're too much strain. The composite of the material is not hard enough. So you want to get in my opinion, you want to step up if you're going to do it and get the 4,500, 5,500, 6,500 series truck. Or if you can swing it and you want to do it and you're really going to commit to this, get a semi. Because most of the hotshot guys that come on and everybody that I talk to, with the exception of a few people, I would say 10% of the market that really does it for 10, 15 years or longer and has been doing it for quite some time in a hotshot setup has went through multiple trucks. But really kind of figured out how to do it. The majority doesn't. The 90% doesn't do that. Okay, the rest of them, they buy the equipment, it depreciates at such a high rate that you can never recover from that situation because most of them, the trucks that are on the lots are not the base, $40,000 crank windows, white, work trucks, right? The ones that you guys go buy are the Laramies, the Lariats, the Platinums, the King Ranches, the Denali's, the fully loaded truck, because that's the truck that they can put you in a payment on. And then the reason why is the finance companies are more apt to give you that is because when they know their repossession rate. When they repossess that truck and it has 100,000 miles on it, they can take it to auction and still recover some of the money and only have a negative equity balance of maybe $9,000, $10,000, $15,000 that they can sue you for and garnish your wages and go after you later on. So it's a safe bet for them. But the truck depreciates so fast because you're going to put 100 to even hot shots. Sometimes if you're really grinding 150,000 miles a year on the truck, guys. So it's impossible for that truck to have any equity in it or to use it the way it needs to be used. Now, if you bought the base model, okay, work truck, maybe cabin chassis truck, whatever, right? And it was, 45,000 and you put 15,000 down and you come into a situation where say it's the Ram with the Cummins and the Ison. That truck will go about 500,000 miles. You'll have a few issues, electronic, DEF, exhaust, and turbo sometimes. But for the most part, the drivetrain is going to be okay. Rear end, you're going to have to do brakes, tires, things like that. But if you get the 4500 series and up, you're going to have 14-ply tires. They're going to last a lot longer. So now you've got a pretty good hotshot setup. But you didn't do that. Most people buy the 3,500, 80,000, $70,000 to $80,000 truck. It's fully loaded. The payment is too high. They can't afford it. The interest rate is too high. They only put about 5,000 down or nothing down, and it wasn't a good deal. But say you did that and you put 10, 15,000 down. You don't owe very much. You use it for 3 to 4 years. You had minimal issues with it. Some of them you were able to cover under warranty, and you go in to trade that truck off, and they give you 15 grand for it. Okay. And you owe 20 and you carry 5,000 negative equity over to your next truck that you're trading that truck in on after 4 years of using it, right? And you also had, not only did you have 5,000, 6,000 negative equity, you had some breakdowns and some issues that you had to fix along the way. So you were really in the hole, 10, 15,000, okay? but you're coming into it with that. They'll put that negative, sometimes they'll wipe the slate clean at the dealership, and sometimes they'll take that negative equity and apply it to the next truck. Well, now you're getting further in the hole, because every time you trade that truck in, you're getting, you know, 5,000 in the hole, right? So unless you take 5,000 with you and you've profited and made and lived very reasonably, and you took 5,000 and you put down a negative equity plus the 10,000 you have to put down in your next truck, right? So you owe 15, they're swapping that out, or you know, you owe 20, they're giving you 15, you paid 5. Now your debt is free and clear, but now you got to buy another truck. So you had to have saved 10 grand or whatever, 15 to do the same process over again. So you got to do it again to be able to get another truck for the run for another 4 years, okay? You just can't do it. It's not logical. I've not seen very many people do it, okay? I do know a few people who have done this, and they were very astute individuals, and a couple of them had been doing hotshot for 15, 20 years. So you guys talking back in the 90s they started, okay? Now, the right way to do it is to get a commercial vehicle that's set up, because if you buy a truck, let's say a F350 King Ranch, okay? And you buy that truck for $70,000. It's a pickup truck, guys. We're using it for an application that it's not intended to be used for it. Those trucks were not designed to be OTR, over the road every day, 150,000 mile a year trucks. They just weren't. They were meant to be farmers' trucks. They were meant to be landscapers' trucks. They were meant to be roofing companies' trucks, electrical companies' trucks. They're meant to be, you know, tow trucks for around town, right? That don't get the same use and wear and tear of 500, 600 miles a day every single day that a semi was invented to do. It was made to do it, okay? That's why they have the hard composite tires that last a year, the big turbos, the big injectors, the big pistons. I mean, you go from a piston in a diesel, okay, if you guys know what a piston is, it's yay big around, to a piston in a semi, which is, you know, much, much bigger, right? The parts are just bigger, harder, and you run that truck at X amount RPM, you're working at way less than you would that diesel or that dually floored out at a much higher RPM. It's working harder on smaller bearings, smaller parts, smaller pieces, smaller camshafts. So, you know, the capacity of this equipment and the thicker of the metals and the bearings materials and the tires and the brakes, okay, even you've got air brakes. In a semi, the brakes don't get used the same way they do in a conventional pickup with hydraulic brakes, right? So air brakes are a backup or a secondary option for the transmission and the drivetrain is what you use to slow the semi down. People don't think about that. So you have constant moving pieces, right? The air brakes are just a secondary form to stop at the very end of the stop. So you use you can use the engine brake, you can use the transmission to slow the semi down, right? You do have an exhaust brake or an engine type brake on a dually. Most of the new trucks do, and it's just another thing that's light duty that can brake. But you do use that, especially when you're towing heavy. You kick that on, you run into haul mode, things like that. And the transmission is made to slow down at different intervals and do things. But you're constantly using the brakes, and those brakes are just, even though they're heavy duty, guys, they're heavy light duty for, you know, landscapers and roofers and different things like that. They're not made to tow, you know, the 20,000 pound load, 30,000 pound load plus a 11, 12,000 pound trailer. Every single day, you're stopping that force. So you're just grinding away at that material and that friction, and they get burned up quickly. The brake pads and brakes on a hotshot truck burn up on average around every 90 days. Every 90 to 120 days, you need to pull in and basically change out at least your brake pads, sometimes your pads and rotors, depending on where you are at. If you run over mountainous terrain, if you run a lot of heavy loads, you know, based on what you did, you're changing your brakes at more intervals than you're changing them on semi. Right? So the tire intervals are also the same, right? So you might get, say, if you're really lucky, 60 to 70,000 miles. I had a few different tires that I got about 60,000 miles out of for my pickup truck, okay? Hotshot trucks. The average was around, because you're running them more and more and more than you would normally. Now, those tires are warranted for 50, 60,000 miles, you know, even some 70,000, but they're not going to get that when you're running them every day. That's annualized. Whenever those tire ratings, you see it when you're buying the tire, that's annualized on light duty, you know, commercial use. They're not talking about 500-600 miles a day. That's using them in a different way than what they were intended for. So those tires are going to go out, say, every 4 months. Okay, it was about the average that they would get below tolerance for DOT standards, and you have to replace the tires. So you're doing the tires you're doing the tires on the truck 2 or 3 times a year, guys. On a semi, you're not doing that. You're doing them every, year and a half. Depending on how you drive, every 2 years. They're just very, very, tougher tires, and they can withstand to do the job that you need to do. Okay. The turbos are much larger. So when you're pulling, and a lot of semis don't even pull 48,000 pounds every day, all day long. People think they do, but they don't. A lot of semis run 25, 30,000 pounds and under, kind of like a hotshot truck. Only you've got a more comfortable sleeping situation. You've got a truck that's going to be running at lower RPM, and it's not working itself as hard, okay? But here's the difference. You go to sell that truck. You bought a King Ranch. Let's hypothetically say that. You go to sell it. It's a pickup truck with 200,000 miles, 300,000 miles on it. Nobody wants a pickup. The farmer, the tow guy, the roofer, he don't want a truck with 300,000 miles on it. He can go down to the Ford house or whatever, or the Ram house, and buy that same truck with 5,000 down. It's brand new, okay? And have a new looking rig with no miles, still under warranty. And his warranty is going to last, a couple years versus your warranty is going to be done the first year you use it, okay? Now, you buy a semi and you put 200,000 or 300,000 miles on it, you can still sell that truck for good money. Somebody's still going to want to buy that. Somebody's still going to want to put it in their fleet. Somebody's still going to want to take that in on trade. Because they know what it's for. They're using it for a specific purpose. It's going into a specific industry. Whereas this is just a pickup truck. It's just another pickup truck, and they got a gazillion of them, and you've over mileaged it and way depreciated it, like to an extent that it's almost worth nothing, right? You owe $70,000 because they gave you an 8-year note, which is crazy on these trucks. They give you like an 8-year note. You owe 70 grand on this thing. You've paid almost nothing except interest, so you still owe like $60,000, $70,000. And in 3 years, you decide you don't want to do it anymore, and/or you blow the motor up, or you blow the transmission up, and the transmission's 6 grand, the motor's 15, whatever, and or you put a motor in it and it blows up again because whoever you had do it didn't do it right, and you waste all that money, so you got burnt, you want to get out of it. Now you got a busted old pickup truck, you owe 70 grand. Well, what just happened? You're going bankrupt. Period. That's it. Okay? In a semi, you could still put it on with a prime or somebody else and put a driver in it and let them run it and dispatch it and manage it, and it's still going to go do what it needs to do every single day. And the warranty is, a lot of the warranties on these trucks are many, many years, guys. And you can buy extended warranties. I've heard 500,000-600,000 miles, right? I've not bought any, but from what I've heard and what I've seen, you can. So that truck is going to go much further for what you're paying for it. And if you buy a decently used one, you're paying about the same as you would a new hotshot truck. So this is why you shouldn't do hotshot. The depreciation fact, the fact that the equipment's just not made to do what it's going to do. Now, if you go into it, like I said, and you buy the $40,000 truck, you got 14-ply tires, you maybe a cabin chassis set up, you put, $15,000 down, you got a low note, and you understand the negative equity gap. You understand that when you come back, you're going to have negative equity, and you plan on paying that negative equity to roll it into a new truck and a new loan. You plan on trading off every 3 or 4 years, and you have a preventative maintenance plan in place, and you're doing your oil changes regularly, and you're checking the things you need to check. You're the exception to the rule, because that might work for you, that type of situation will work. But buying the new Platinum, buying the new King Ranch, buying the new Laramie, buying the new, the Bighorn, whatever, and the bad one, and that's super expensive, that's fully loaded, it's just not, it's not realistic. You're buying to appease yourself and think everybody else is going to look at me, look at my cool big truck, when in reality, it's just a work truck. So, I've had guys sign on, and I've had people that I've coached and mentored, they did it the right way. They bought the work truck, or they bought one that was a year old that somebody already lost a bunch of interest and equity and stuff in, and they were able to pick up and be in a good position to pivot on that truck when it did break down or when it had issues. I see a lot of issues with hotshot trucks. It seems like they run until the motor blows up and they're out of business just because they can't afford it. They don't have the credit. They leveraged everything they had to do it. And they don't have the negative equity, and they can't attain another truck. Or even if they can attain another truck, that truck just ruined their credit. So even if they went and bought another truck, that truck's ruining their credit because they're not going to finish paying that off. Nobody's going to pay for a truck that doesn't run. You're not going to pay $70,000 for a truck with the motor blew up. So they let it go back to the bank. The bank repossesses it, takes it to auction, sells it for $20,000. I've seen this, or $10,000, because I have a car dealership and I see them there all the time. And they go after you for the difference against your credit. They sue you, whatever. They garnish your wages. They put it in collections and come after you, and you're screwed, right? Whereas if you have a semi, You could hire somebody if you decide you don't want to drive, you can hire somebody else and keep that truck working, and it doesn't have to be on with your MC. You can lease it on to Prime, Landstar, a bunch of these big companies that run semis every single day and know how to do it and can at least keep that truck moving so you're not going bankrupt. And that truck's going to last, continually last. Even if you got to put a little bit of money in here and there, it's going to last. As well as the main thing is comfortability. You're not going to get into a sleep in a pickup truck and have a full size bed. You're going to be cramped up, okay? You're not going to have the ride that a nice semi is going to have. I mean, obviously, if you get a freight shaker, whatever, Freightliner or whatever, but if you get a nicer Kenworth or something like that has a good seat in it and good suspension, and you're doing LTL with it and stuff like that, you're probably not going to get beat up too bad. But if you're not driving it, just get you a driver and let them deal with those headaches. But you need to know why not to do hotshot. That's one of the biggest ones. The other one is, who knows how long hotshot is going to be a thing, because of the way that hotshot has been adapted from the oil field to the LTL world. And more and more brokers are saying no hotshots, no hotshots, no hotshots, because they're being disenfranchised or being screwed over by hotshots that are getting into the game. It's an easy entry to the business, and because of that, more people are going out of business. They don't know what they don't know. They're rookies and they fail, have accidents, run the insurance rates up, and they screw the brokers over, and the brokers are stopping using hotshots. So that's some of the reasons why. Okay. Also, just your capacity, right? When you buy that truck, you're gonna go buy the cheap trailer. I see a lot of guys buy the Big Tex trailer, and it doesn't have 14 ply or 16 ply tires on it. And the same thing. They got it because it was cheap with a cheap payment, and it's the same situation. You just got equipment that's not meant to do what you're gonna do with it. That trailer was built for hay farmers. That trailer was built to tow tractors for a farmer. It was built to tow four-wheelers out to a mud pit or something. It was not made to run those Dexter axles every single day, the heavy loads, 500 miles, 600 miles a day. Just wasn't meant to do it. You're buying light duty equipment for a heavy duty commercial application, okay? So my advice is, if you really want to get into hotshot, and that's really the route that you want to go, step back and look at it and say, okay, this guy and this guy and this guy are saying that I need to get into it at the right equity gap. Because if you get into it and you're going to go bankrupt in 3 years, because you bought the wrong truck, and you didn't have the right tires on the truck, and you didn't have preventative maintenance, you didn't have your brakes set up or the right things set up, and you didn't know what you don't know, all you're going to do is go bankrupt. Are you prepared to jump into an industry? Everybody makes it look like a get-rich-quick scheme in hotshot, and it's not, guys. And I recommend not getting into it. I recommend, if you're going to get into the trucking industry, go to work for somebody in the trucking industry, get an actual insight and behind-the-scenes view of what it really is for what it is, and not just this stuff you see on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. A lot of, even the YouTube guys, you'll see a lot of them, or even, like one of the guys, he does the enterprise stuff. I did that. It's very tough to make money, but at least you could see, and this guy's had a bunch of enterprise trucks over the years, and every one of them, it looks like it's broken down, whether it be a turbo, a fuel issue, a fuel pump, or this or that, or whatever it is, and they've covered it, they've fixed it, and he didn't have to pay for it, or it was under their warranty or whatever, but it still put him down revenue. So, getting into it, you really have to look and think, can I go do that first before I put my credit on the line? Can I go do that first before I go bankrupt? Can I go do that first to see what it's really like and get a behind the scenes, what it's actually like to be in the hotshot world, guys? Because seeing what you see on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and then just going and jumping in it, those YouTube guys haven't even been on there that long. I see some of them have been on there a year, 2 years, and they've had breakdowns and trailer issues and this and that, and they've been able to recover. Or they were renting a truck and they got out of that truck, or they started with their personal truck. Say you guys that have diesels, 2500s, 3500s, you have them to tow your dragster for the weekend or your horse trailer or whatever, right? And you put that into hotshot, and then it blows up because it was a 2012 or 2014 or a 2001. And you go out and buy the big brand new truck. Well, yeah, you got to taste it and see what it's like. But I see a lot of them, man. I mean, they did this, and the truck broke down, right? And then they ended up migrating into semis eventually anyway, or they just got out of it altogether. But watch the YouTube channels. There's a ton of them that got in it. Their truck broke down. They go and buy the big expensive truck. They go down to the dealership. They can get it. They put $5,000 down or whatever they had, or they trade the one that they had paid cash. And you see a lot of guys get into it and they're like, oh man, I got this truck pay cash, trailer pay cash. It's a 99, but I'll make it work for a year and this and that. And literally the first month, the injectors go out and it's going to cost, you know, $3,500, $3,800. They take it down and trade it in on a brand new truck. And they think that that's going to fix the problem. But all they've done is push that problem off for 2 years, 3 years. It's going to come back around again in a bigger way because now you owe $70,000 and that truck was paid for and you got rid of it over a $3,800 problem because you didn't have $3,800 to fix it, or 5 or 6 or 8 grand because the transmission went out, whatever it is, right? You had this idea, I'm gonna have paid for equipment, which you did have a good idea there, because if you can make the money and make that work, that model can work. But I've just seen too many people not shell away the money, the truck breaks down and then they can't get it fixed, or they're down for a while, have to go drive for somebody else or do something else to get the money to fix their truck. But if you'd have bought a semi to begin with, a good semi that you checked out, you did an oil sample on if it was used, or you just bought a new one, or you know, leased one, whatever, maybe you had a higher lease payment. But it's a flat line instead of a curve that goes up and down on a chart, right? Lease is this way, you know, ownership is this way, you know what I mean? So you have to kind of see what's better for you. Yeah, this one costs more, but it's a guarantee, you know, because you know they're going to give you another truck if that one goes down, or you know, you can get them to fix it and it's not your responsibility, but you're paying for that. You're paying for that insurance. You're paying for that peace of mind, and you're not leveraging your personal credit. Now, everybody that I've seen that, you know, they go buy the truck, they go buy the trailer, now they're in this note and they're sitting there thinking, man, what am I going to do? Or the truck starts having little issues and they're like, oh man, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Right? Well, that's what happens, guys. So that's why I think you should not do hotshot. I'm going to do a follow-up video to this. If you like this one, please click on the next one. Thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe to the channel. Click on notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Catch you on the next one.